Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. In this upcoming episode of the Dreams Unlimited Travel podcast, the team talks about what we think cruising will look like given coronavirus and COVID-19. As you may or may not know, we record our shows in advance, and this show was recorded a little over a week ago. And since then, there's been some new information released that's going to contradict some of the things we talk about on the show. I'll give you an example. The CDC has announced that there should be no cruising until September 15th of 2020. That information came out after we recorded the show, so it's a little bit out of date at the moment, what we talk about. But we think the rest of the stuff is valid, some speculation, some fun discussion. We hope you enjoy it. Thanks for tuning in. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dreams Unlimited Travel podcast. My name is John Magi, and I'll be your host. And in this episode, we're going to talk about what we think the future of cruising looks like in a COVID-19 world. I'm joined via Skype by our panel of experts, Client Services Manager for Dreams Unlimited Travel, Kevin Bruce.
I'm sitting there.
I know, but we have to pretend like
I'm not coming in by Skype.
You should. And
Hi.
Agent Consultant for Dreams Unlimited Travel, Tracy Heinrichs.
Hi, everyone.
And from the big top, our producer, Craig Williams.
This is the greatest show.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, everybody at home, for tuning in and joining us for this discussion. Thank you, Tracy, for being here. It's been a while since we've had you on.
I know, I missed you guys.
No, you didn't.
Yeah. What is what I was supposed to say?
But I have my notes because I missed you.
Yeah, you sent it to me in an email, remember?
That's right.
She's using her emotion flashcards.
I think just, the weird thing is just everyone being isolated and being apart. It's like, it's so weird in that,
Yeah.
finally get to see somebody. It's like, oh, hi. How are you doing in Canada? Are you guys feeling okay? Everybody healthy and good?
Yeah, we're doing good. We're staying isolated as much as we can. I've compromised immune system. My parents live with us, and my mom does as well. So, the men go out and forage for food, and the women folks stay home. And if we do go out, wear masks, and just trying to do what we can.
How's Ben?
How's who?
Ben.
Your son.
Ben is doing okay. I'm missing him because our province is on lockdown, so I can't go see him in Ontario, and he can't come see me. So we talk and FaceTime a lot, but he's doing well.
Tell him we asked about him.
I will.
Post videos of Chris foraging for food.
Well, at the grocery store. Sometimes he goes to a discount store. It can be a little dicier, but
He's not hunting and gathering.
no. Well, maybe his form of hunting and gathering at the bulk barn.
All right. So, like I said, we're going to talk about the future, what we think the future of cruising is. And I want to kind of preface this conversation with a lot of what we're going to talk about is opinion and speculation and what we think is going to happen. Please don't write to me and say, where did you guys get this information from? A lot of it we're just making up. Most of it is coming from Tracy's butt. So, just want to let you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, but some of it is going to be based on, I've read some articles, I've been following the cruise lines and what they're talking about, but we don't have official information on what's going to happen. But we can all sort of chime in and give our opinion on that. So what I want to start with is, when do we think cruises are actually going to start? We know that they can't go to Canada ever.
Yeah, Canada said forget it. We're done. So, you can't come to Canada until sometime in October, which is going to take care of pretty well, west and east coast of Canada. So that's eliminates all the Alaskas. I think everybody now has canceled their Alaska season. I think Norwegian is holding on to some hope for a little bit of September out of Seattle. The east coast of Canada, where the New York cruises are popular, doing like New England and Canada and stuff. A lot of the cruise lines have canceled those, except for Disney. They're still deciding what they're going to do. So that's pretty well, that season's finished. But as far as when in general,
Is it Europe? Europe is off the table. Till
Yeah,
October.
Europe isn't going to happen this year. I don't think enough ports are open to warrant. And with flying restrictions, and so many countries have a 14-day quarantine, and it's just not going to work for this season. Also, some of the more local stuff, the stuff out of Florida and stuff, a lot of that is Disney is set up until the end of July. They're canceled, but Norwegian just extended all the way into August and September for a lot of sailings. So I personally, in my opinion, I'll be shocked if we see anything before mid to late fall this year.
Wow.
I'll be shocked if we see anything in July or August or even September.
Adventures by Disney just canceled everything for August also.
Yeah. And I think the writing's on the wall for September, don't you? They changed their cancellation policy for September. So, as far as cruising goes, the CDC hasn't even, they're now saying, we don't even know when. Like, they're not even talking to the cruise lines to come up with guidelines to say what the cruise lines have to do in order to allow passengers to sail again. And their current date is July something as well. I think July 25th or something like that. So I just can't see a world where this is going to happen before, October, November, December kind of thing. There's a lot of people predicting there's going to be nothing until Q1 of next year.
That is true. I'm a little more optimistic than that, though.
What?
I am, believe it or not. I know, me.
I know.
I think that the cruise industry, the cruise lines are looking to figure out a way to take advantage of the drive market, the domestic market in local areas.
Yeah.
And I think we might see something happen in August. Some sort of test balloons go up. This is, of course, speculation. I know nothing, but the idea that perhaps 3-4 night sailings out of Port Canaveral, out of Galveston, as long as you're staying in the U.S. or at U.S. ports, these all might be feasible with very limited capacity. And I think that's a lot of testing to see what they can do. The cruise lines also have to consider too that they run a profit based on full ships. So 30% capacity on a ship, it might not be worth it for them.
Might not cover the cost of fuel.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
So I think there's that sort of idea of how do they make this work?
We've also gotten news that cases are on the rise along the southern part of the United States. And that might cause, some slowdown. If you come into Florida and you have to quarantine for 14 days, that 3-day cruise becomes 2 weeks.
Right.
Exactly.
And how far away are we from, with Florida's numbers increasing, do you think other states or countries will start to say, if you are coming from Florida, you have to quarantine for 14 days?
Well, we blocked people from New York and New Jersey for a while.
Right.
So I think a lot depends on how in Florida, and I'm a Floridian, on how we handle this.
Yeah.
Yeah, things continue the way they're going. I have a feeling we're going to see other places stop Floridians from entering. We have a Alani trip in October that, we have fingers and toes crossed. We really want to go so bad. Is it October? And
we have an edge sailing over Thanksgiving. That we're really looking forward to.
But the fear is that, Hawaii especially, they're very, very strict.
Yeah.
They've been really tight. So the idea is that, they may say, people from Florida, you can't show up. So we're willing to say it. But again, I'm really hoping that, I guess I'm just being an optimist here, that we are going to start to see cruising in some capacity come back later this summer with an idea of how they can make it work.
Yeah. I've always thought of you as very Pollyanna-like. So I could see that with your rose-colored glasses being so optimistic.
You know me.
John's giving you a cruise on the Diamond Princess.
Well, the problem is too, and one of the other reasons why I'm so skeptical is there's still so many ships out there with crew members on them who can't return home.
Even Disney ships.
Yeah. I think 2 of them still have crew members on them. So, you've had crews sailing out here, out in the waters for 3 months with, not allowed to disembark or get home. So I know they just dropped off some more in Barbados. I think it was a couple days ago, but these are very limited numbers. So, the fact that you've got that still happening, the CDC seems unwilling to even discuss a plan at this point. It's unbelievable. I do think, though, you're right on one thing. I think the early start, we're going to see a lot of like 3-4 day Bahamas, maybe only stopping at private islands. Maybe, a double dip at Castaway, or maybe, Royal Caribbean will take people to their perfect day at Coco Cay a couple times and not even go to a different port.
Yeah, that's going to be part of the conversation. I apologize. I want to get back to what you were saying. But part of the conversation I was going to have is that, these cruise lines that do have access to their private islands and the ability to get there from a certain port quickly, we might see go first. So
Right.
Disney will say, listen, we're not going to go to Nassau. We're not going to go there. But guess what? You can go to Castaway Cay.
Right.
Well, I was
They
going to
can control the
mention,
whole experience then, right?
Tracy keeps interrupting me.
I'm
So-
sorry.
I'm sorry, what did you say? I was playing.
I said that if Disney's leaving Port Canaveral and going only to Castaway, they can control the entire experience. There's
However,
not the unknown.
virtually, I don't know what the percentage is. Most of the crews are international folks.
Yeah.
So that means they have to bring all of them back.
Yeah.
Unless they have them all in a hut over at Port Canaveral.
A lot of them stayed on the ship. I know with Royal Caribbean, we saw that picture. They parked their ships out in Coco Cay and just sort of let them live on those ships rather than send them home.
So the ships all have to be restaffed, So
Yep. There's a lot.
So we've talked about the possibility of when it would happen. Let's talk a little bit about, do you think they're going to control capacity? Other than, maybe saying you can't go to the theater, maybe cruises would work because people in general are spread out. You're in your own state.
yeah, they have belly flop contests that get pretty crowded, and
Well, again,
dance parties and things like
I
that.
think that stuff might be limited. But do you think they're going to say 30% capacity on a cruise ship?
I don't know.
Chris,
Okay.
hang on. Is there a problem?
No. I was going to chime in and say here that with my big thing that I think about on ships is, what do you do with like the hallway scenario? Like, how will ships, like, the only thing I can think of is that they will have to move into like one way only up and down hallways in order to make sure that people aren't, passing each other and staying close to each other. But like, how I'm just, for some people that, they can't walk a long stretch. Like, I also think about scenarios like that too. So it seems like there's really basic stuff that you have to get to before you can even jump about the bigger crowd gatherings, like theater, plays, and
Elevators.
such beyond that. Yeah, elevators.
I don't think it's beyond reason to assume that, maybe deck 4 goes front to back.
Oh,
Maybe
I would
deck
like to
5.
be in charge of policing that.
Would you? Have them with a baton and
A taser.
a hat. and a
I'm
baton.
sorry, you're going the wrong way on deck 4.
But that's a very good possibility that says, listen, you're going to get off the elevator at 4, you can only go this way. You're going to get off at 3, you can only come back the other way. These are things that cruise lines are going to have to consider, in addition to, do you have every third seat in a auditorium not be full? Do you have, every other table be empty in restaurants? These are
And
big decisions.
buffets.
Yeah, well, buffets are interesting because Royal Caribbean actually, that's the word, was quoted as saying buffets will be different. There will be no more Windjammer as we know it. That's the buffet on the Royal Caribbean ships.
I'm not entirely sure that's a bad thing.
Well, yeah, some of this sounds like my perfect scenario, right? You know that.
People going the wrong way.
Nobody can be within 6 feet
People
of
want-
me. Nobody can touch the food I'm about to have.
And
Everybody
there's the
has to
hand
wash,
sanitizer
wash.
every 4 feet.
Yeah. So, for me, this may seem perfect.
Well,
But,
there's also this idea too. People are excited about going to Walt Disney World with less people in it.
yeah.
It might be a little exciting to go on a cruise where there's less people. And like you said, you you're going to sit every other table and you're going to walk a certain way. That might be appealing because you might think to yourself, I feel more safe because they're going to control that.
I know people who don't cruise have the opinion that cruise ships are nothing but petri dishes. Why would you ever do that? That's a lot of the arguments I hear against cruising. But those of us who are really big fans of cruising, and I think Craig likes it, I would say John and Kevin and I are really big fans of cruising. We think that they go above and beyond in this area already. So I think cruise ships are going to do a really good job at this once they have parameters.
I know the big thing is you always hear every year, oh, norovirus. Norovirus is blah, blah, blah. If you think about a cruise and how many people and the density of people on a cruise and the things you do within proximity of each other, the number of norovirus cases is actually very little.
Right.
As a percentage.
However, it's like the 100-pound gorilla.
Right.
Listen, it makes the news because, oh my gosh, 100 people were sick.
Right. The
Out of
percentage.
5,000.
Right. And then also, so that's a testament to how well they clean and the steps they take and the precautions they take because they know that this is, would be a death knell to their industry if this became the norm. But I agree, Tracy. I think that most cruise lines go so far above and beyond. And Royal Caribbean right now, with their hand washing stations that you have to go through to get to a place with the hand sanitizers right outside and the, crazy, hand sanitizer people. Like if you don't do it and they start spraying you all over with it.
Don't you remember they changed the muster drill to include a multiplication or
it was a beautiful song about washing your hands.
a Schoolhouse Rock kind of song about
I can
washing
sing it.
your hands?
I'm just kidding.
You know it?
But I could. Oh, of course I do. It was my favorite song. Somebody
Could you give us a
asked me on
little bit? I
Facebook
don't
of my
remember.
favorite song, and it was the Washy Washy song from Royal Caribbean.
So you just brought something up. That's another good point that we read about was they're talking about virtual muster drills.
Yep.
They're doing away with that thing where you all stand in a line behind each other, inches apart, squeeze in, and somehow doing it virtually, right? You know what I'm talking about.
I do.
Get right up to that person. And they're doing it virtually so that that's one of the things they're looking into making cruising safer with COVID.
Yep.
So I think that this whole thing is, we don't know where they're going to go with a lot of it, but I'm comfortable with, I think someone will.
And they've talked about robotic stateroom attendants.
Yeah, there was an article I read that talked about, the regular cleaning would happen, and they're going to send in these robotic sterilizers, sanitizers, that would then sanitize your room so no human has touched it. So they're looking into these things that will hopefully make people feel better about travel.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but we had a Roomba that kept getting stuck under the table. I can't wait to see what happens with a robot cleaner.
Backing into that corner over and over again.
Yeah. Well, Royal Caribbean Corporation is saying that they've got this blue ribbon panel of a number of experts in different fields who have been meeting since all of this has started, trying to come up with what can we do and what should we be doing and all of that. So, cruise lines are taking this very, very seriously.
Right.
I think Norwegian is the only one yet to put out any kind of a plan. They put out this 6-step kind of plan to keep us safe and to build comfort in sailing with them again. But it's their plan until the CDC is involved and says what the plan has to be. You can't really. But interesting enough, though, the Norwegian plan didn't mention, as far as I could tell, wearing masks, because that's a big one. Are masks going to be required?
That's interesting.
I don't know about you, but for the next good stretch of time, I'm going to wear a mask pretty much anywhere I go.
That's the rule here in our house. Anywhere we go, we wear a mask. If we're outside and it's just us walking and there's nobody right near us, we're fine with taking it off. But as soon as I'm anywhere inside or where there's a crowd of people, the masks are on because, people have forgotten in some cases that there's still a pandemic. People are very confused about what social distancing means, what 6 feet looks like. So, no, for us, the rule in this house is masks every time you're out in the public.
Us too.
So one of the things I think is good about the cruise industry for the most part is they have advanced their technology to the point that it's actually fitting in with what would work
I agree.
at a time of COVID. You've got the quote unquote sort of magic band looking wristbands that some cruise lines are using, or the app on your phone that will open your door. And there's no need now to sign paperwork. You can check in before you arrive and not come in contact with anybody and do an express check-in. So some of that stuff that's already in place is going to help them move into a more seamless, no touch environment and safer environment. So I think they've got a leg up on that, much in the same way that Walt Disney World does.
Right.
The Magic Band, the My Disney experience, all of the idea with the app that you should be paying off your phone. All of this is stuff that, almost like, thank goodness they did all this, because it positioned them better to deal with this now than if someone had to completely come up with this from scratch.
Both
So
cruise
that-
lines and Disney have the online check-in option, and the fact that you could arrive and check in without needing human interaction at all. So that is only a plus. And then I'm also hearing that cruise lines are going to stagger like arrival times. They're going to stagger dinner times more. Royal Caribbean too is, like, as you said, they're saying the buffet is not going to look like it did before. Norwegian is saying they'll have people working and serving at their buffets. Disney, I think, didn't Disney say too that they were doing away with the buffet? They knew that would not be offered when they did come back to sailing. I thought I had heard something about that. I mean, the buffet's tough. There's so many people not just touching everything, but in line, and that kind of gathering. So I think they'll be doing anything where people have to gather. They'll be looking at ways to reducing that. It seems a huge, huge project. I mean, so many different things to think about.
The reason for a buffet is to move people quickly.
Yeah.
They want to get people in and out, and you want to be able to get them on their way. If there's less passengers, something like a buffet might not be necessary.
True.
They
Yeah.
could serve that many guests in a restaurant for breakfast and not have to worry about getting them and getting in and out. One of the things that they're saying will most likely go away, though, is room service.
Yes.
You will
Heard
not
that.
see room service on any cruise.
That'll be very tough for you two.
Oh my God! What can we do?
I know. I mean, it's
We bring
okay.
our own snacks.
It's okay for me. I mean, although if we're on a cruise together, you can make me bring things to your room.
It's true.
We know her hands would be clean.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. For sure. You know I wash my hands.
But yeah, I mean, there are things that are going to be changed that's part of the regular cruising experience. Some of that we're okay with. We don't really care about the shows and stuff, so I'm okay if those change. But then we look at what do we love? We love the casino. How do you deal with a casino full of people?
Maybe it'll be virtual too. You'll play it on your iPad.
I read something about the buffets that one of the options might be people bringing food around on trolleys.
Mm.
And instead of you going to the buffet, then bringing the buffet to people.
That sounds like a chubby girl's dream. I mean, I don't even have to walk to get the food anymore.
I'm waiting for them to allow me to lay down and just put it next to my face.
Roman feeding frenzy where you
I think of the times we've sat in a buffet area for like hours just talking and, spending time together. And you imagine if they were coming around with trolleys feeding us the whole time.
It's kind of a dream about.
It sounds kind of like the perfect cruise.
Not a lot of people, all of them far away from you, and you're going to keep bringing trolleys of food by me?
I don't see a downside.
Yeah, if we can just play blackjack at the same time.
Maybe that'll be it. Everybody gets a designated table and all the experiences are brought to you.
Doesn't sound so bad.
Yeah.
Isn't that what Wally was about?
You were tricky to Wally. Oh,
I did like the music though.
What else do we think is going to happen? What do you think is going to be some of the changes to cruising in the future? At least
I
the
think
immediate future.
Ports are going to be a big issue. I think there's going to be a lot still closed, and the ones that open, I think the cruise lines are going to be a lot more careful about where they're bringing guests. I wonder how shore excursions will change. Groups of people in a bus going to be with other groups of people.
Well, I also see you've been in a port where there's 6 ships.
Right.
I think that's going to change. There won't be as many ships allowed in each port.
Right?
Yeah.
So you're going to have the actual port of call having to regulate who comes in each day and what ships arrive, and then that affects their economy. Because again, this is a business that's built on volume. They want 6 ships in port on a day because that's when their shops open and people make their money. So it's going to be a different way of life for everybody.
Yeah.
We touched on the private island. I think the private island is going to be a huge part of all of this for cruise lines. And I think Disney and Royal Caribbean are going to be in the forefront to be able to offer the guests.
I bet there will be Tanzanite sales.
See how cheap Tanzanite's going to be.
Do you guys know where they're at with the second island for Disney Cruise Line?
I don't believe that there's any construction. I think they're all
They're just in the very early stages of that.
Craig, do you know anything? You're more up on the news than we are here.
No, they're chugging along on it, but it's nowhere near ready for the near future as soon as this all turns around and comes back on. So I don't think that's a quick turnaround option for them at all.
Right.
I'm going to be honest with you. I think if there were any progress on that island, people would be doing Google Map shots all over the internet.
Flying their drones across the ocean to see it.
I mean, 700 people posted on Twitter today that they were using the Incredibles in their safety information. So if that's a big deal on Twitter, I'm pretty sure New Island's going to.
We would have heard.
Yeah.
But maybe this expedites that. Maybe this is, there's talk of the Reflections Resort at Walt Disney World being put on hold. Maybe this is a time where they look at redirecting funds and saying, listen, let's get our second island up and running, because that opens up more opportunity for cruises that could go on. So, all of this are considerations that someone has got to think of somewhere. What else do we want to say might happen with cruises?
I think a lot of the onboard activities are still going to be offered as far as shows and stuff. I think there probably would be more of them, so people are even more spread out. But when you think of everything they have to do, there is no way to do it without drastically reducing capacity. I'll be surprised if any time in the next, year we see more than a 50% capacity on anything.
But the interesting thing is, look at Disney Cruise Line just released discounts for September.
I know.
So what is our speculation? Is our speculation that there's not even a 30% capacity on those cruise lines? I can't imagine that's the case. But they are still trying to get people to book September.
My speculation is the people who put out the sales didn't get the memo that there's a pandemic. Because we know that happens with Disney sometimes. One department doesn't talk with the other.
I think it's an influx of cash. And even if it's an influx of cash for a short time.
Maybe. It just seems, I don't know. It doesn't seem, and like you said, are the bookings that low? Because I would think at minimum they're at 30% now. Why would they be looking for more? But I don't know.
But again, I think you're right in the fact that they don't have any guidelines, where World at least has a guideline where they have to, whatever it is, 30% of normal capacity for a certain amount of time. The cruise lines don't even know what that is yet.
Right.
That creates a problem further down the road, because what if they're past that?
Yeah, exactly.
Adjusting that. It becomes this nightmare of logistics.
They also keep fine tuning the things that you need to do to stay safe. Right. We recently heard that there's far less chance of transmission from a surface than they originally thought. that you should still keep sanitizing your surfaces, but your chance of catching it from that is much less. And now they're saying the biggest problem is people in an enclosed space talking loudly or yelling or singing.
What?
What do you mean?
Why?
Because the louder you talk, the more you project the air
Oh, okay.
body. So this is getting gross, but the spray is further. So you
Singing, yelling. That's why indoor sporting events, they're
Okay.
thinking those are going to be held back for a while.
Mhm.
Being outside is easier. We might see a lot more activities on deck
Right. That makes sense.
than an indoor activity.
That was one of the things I was thinking about is like, specifically in terms of Disney Cruise Line, we already know how sad their adult activities are at night. Like it's not unfathomable to walk into Fathoms for whatever game show they're doing and there's already only 30 people in there when you could and have like how do they do a lot of that adult entertainment at night when you only have 10 people in there? Or
It's just going to happen in staterooms now.
yeah, well, and then I think too, like if you walk into the bar for trivia, before it was pretty normal to see maybe 15 people at whatever bar for trivia, and if capacity is cut on these ships, like so, then maybe you get 3 people sign up for trivia. That's not fun. So I feel like with all activities, it's just going to have such a drastic change, but like Disney with adults in particular, I think that's going to be a really big one. And I'm not even going to touch like kids clubs because I don't have kids, so I don't want to be talking about it or the procedures that go into place there. But I have to imagine that has to be a concern for people too.
So this is why I think that a cruise line like Royal Caribbean has an upper hand because of the bigger ships and the whole wide open spaces. You know, they've got that schooner bar where they usually have trivia. And Craig, if you go on a Royal Caribbean ship, there's like 20 trivia challenges through the week, and they're always packed.
You can never get a seat.
You can never get a seat. People love to do it, and it's kind of almost in an open space, because of the promenade. So I think Royal Caribbean's got a little bit of an upper hand when it comes to that stuff, but definitely not when it comes to the kids stuff.
Because Disney is more family oriented, their nighttime activities are rather bleak.
Yeah.
For adults.
And people just don't participate in them.
I would be very excited to get back on one of the royal ships that have the robot bar and know that I could be served cocktails from a non-person. That would definitely be something that I'd be thrilled about.
Actually, I read this article, and someone said, we all laughed at Royal Caribbean when they put out the robot bar. We all thought, what a funny gimmick, and ha ha ha, it's so silly. And now it's like, that might be the future of all bars. That might be the future of all food service. You got nobody touching it. And you got to go up. You have to go up, one at a time, and, you scan your band or whatever it is, and then you go sit back down and wait for your drink. There's no hanging out at the bar. So that might be the answer to everything.
And as somebody who has spent a lot of time at robot bars with Craig and Corey, I can tell you, yeah, that is definitely his number one focus on cruise.
But, the flip side, I think Disney has an upper hand when it comes to the kids programs because they have those purpose-built spaces that could spread the kids out more easily. The Royal Caribbean kind of has, we saw one kids area, and it was sad. It was like one room, and a big plastic ball in the middle. That was it.
With bars on the other side.
And bars on the windows.
They were wiping that ball down a lot.
They were wiping it down. But Disney has the upper hand to spread the kids out and give them, more interaction because of the space that they have. So, again, a lot has to do with the cruise line you pick, but these are all considerations that people are going to have to think about.
Let me ask you guys a question. Knowing what you know now about cruise lines and about the parks, would you feel safer or more comfortable spending time in the parks for a week or on a ship?
It's a tough question because a lot of what I had heard from the National Institute of Health said that once temperatures and humidities rise, we will see a decline if you stay outside. The transmission of the disease is less if you're outside. However, in Florida, it is roughly 100 degrees and 90% humidity now. And like we said, we're seeing a spike in cases. So I don't know if that's not true. So I would have said Disney parks, but now I think if there's less capacity on a cruise, put me on a cruise.
The problem is when we go on a cruise, John and I are not really outdoor kind of boys. There's cruises where we don't see the sun.
Thank God for our balcony. We can get no friend whatsoever.
Yeah, no zip lining for you too.
So yeah, I would think cruise for me personally, if
Yeah.
the precautions were in place.
And for me, it feels like a cruise is a more contained environment. Whereas the parks, you in both situations, you're relying on other people a lot to do what they're supposed to do, even if you're doing what you're supposed to do. So
But
that's
isn't
always
that
the
true of
unknown.
old life?
Wait, I want to hear what you said. Go ahead. What were you saying? I'm sorry.
I interrupted her. It's her turn.
Yeah, payback. I think that the biggest thing is you rely on other people to do what they're supposed to do. To also like that they're doing what they're supposed to do, just like you are. And so the more people you have to rely on to be following the rules in a less contained area, that's where I get a little more anxious about it. So I feel on a cruise ship, it's more of a contained area and there's more people along the way reminding you of the rules and to follow them.
There's also, I think, also what you're saying too is that with Disney, you can have an influx of new people.
Right.
For a cruise, you're not going to have that sort of at this port. All of a sudden, we're going to take on 30 people who might be sick.
Yeah.
You know? So Disney, you'll never know who's coming and going, but a cruise is going to be the same people. That doesn't mean the people you come in contact with in the port can't be sick, or people who are bringing food and things on couldn't be sick. But I think it's a less chance of that happening. I think my only problem with cruising is I don't want to be quarantined on a cruise. I don't want to have that situation. And unfortunately, that was a small percentage of the total amount of cruisers at that time, but it got all the attention.
Yeah.
And it was scary. I'm going to be honest with you.
They just let somebody, the final passenger off.
The
final,
Van Damme.
Yeah, off the Van Damme. However, John went on the Van Damme. The final passenger just got off.
So I think that worries me a little bit because it was so sensationalized and because it was
part of the news every day. That's what I joked. I badly joked about putting Tracy on the Diamond Princess.
So let's switch up a little bit. We talked quite a bit about Disney and Royal Caribbean and sort of Norwegian and the Caribbean-ish sailings or those type of things. What do we think about like river cruises, like Viking river cruises and Ama? These are much smaller ships, much less people, but they stop in so many different ports, and you interact with.
And
so
these are
many
not small ports. It's not like you're getting off at a small fishing village
or private island.
A lot of times you're getting off in the middle of a city, and you're dealing with the entire city. So I think that's going to take a little while longer. They're on a river cruise. There is no place to spread out. Everybody uses the same dining room,
right?
At the same time.
And those hallways are really tiny. You think a cruise ship's tiny? Those river cruise ships are tiny hallways.
Mm-hmm. I think that's going to be tougher because there is no place to, unless they completely limit the number of people.
And also you think about, too, you're going sometimes between countries. Mm-hmm. So how do you handle that dynamic of maybe one country is not ready to receive guests or has a limitation on who can visit from different parts around the world and another country doesn't?
I mean, I have guests on Adventures by Disney who are not allowed into the country at this point. And we're not allowed. I mean, right now, Europe has a thing that only international or European guests can travel between countries. So that makes it harder.
I agree.
And a riverboat really is a means of transportation, whereas a cruise ship can be the destination. So there aren't, ways to keep people busy on the riverboat, that they're doing like, okay, we can't stop here, but there's all these great activities happening today. That can't be. And what we were talking about with regular cruise ships, where you're coming into contact with less people, with a river cruise, you're coming in contact with more people as you move from country to country. So I think it's going to be much harder to contain that, unless I could see them opening for only Europeans to start. But I don't think that's their market.
I don't
No,
think so
it's not
either.
their market for sure.
No.
If it is, though, it's more, further away. Like they're not going to get people in France to take the French river cruise. That's not how it works. It's usually people who travel further away within Europe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a tough market to really think about. What about Viking Ocean? Now, Viking Ocean has a smaller ship,
Mm-hmm.
much less passengers on the ship, but again, they are not the destination. You're not going to have, movies on the funnel vision at night. So, what do we think about Viking River Ocean?
The string quartet concerts got pretty crowded.
Oh my God, they're so boring. They're so boring. And then
I think it's going to depend on their ports, don't you? Don't they do sometimes a little more boutique ports where it's not always major cities? So that could work in their advantage.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. They usually go to the not biggest port of a destination, like you might go to Sicily or Corsica or someplace that the big ships don't stop at. So that's a possibility too. And I think from a cleanliness, control issue, they might have a little bit better handle on it. But again, it's that idea of how do you control it when you stop at port and people come on and get off the ship. Now, these are all big questions of what they're going to do. Let's hope someone out there is thinking about them and putting that all together relatively soon. Because we like to.
Elevator skeeves me out on any ship. I would have a pen or a pencil with me to push buttons and wipe things down. And that's pretty tight on some elevators.
But even think about, how crowded the elevators are just on a regular cruise. The fact that we get on the elevator and then there's like 40 people pushed up against you. Are they going to have somebody manning those elevators that says, it's at 3 people, 4 people per elevator?
Yeah, like a little circle on spots where you stand.
There you go. Yeah, because I'm always afraid I'm going to be too big for the circle.
Well, part of the problem is I can't always see the circle.
Chris, is this a circle? That's what
Am I on?
No, I have to use my phone to see if I'm on a circle.
She's taking feet selfies. Yeah, I imagine getting off the elevator and the thing I want to go to is at the right, but I'm on a floor where you have to travel left, and now I have to walk all the way around the ship to get to the. Is it me?
I hate when it happens in a grocery store. Imagine on a ship.
The sales on a ship. Talk about shopping, right? Mm-hmm. You go to those things where they have $5 scarves and $10 Invicta watches. Those things are breeding grounds for germs because people are crawling all over each other and screaming and throwing stuff back to each other.
They're very dangerous at the best of times.
They are. So what did they do about that?
Before there was COVID, they were dangerous.
You got to wear a helmet and goggles.
COVID may help that, actually. It might be a good thing.
Again, I know this is a weird thing. I almost think that maybe it will. That maybe cruising might be a slightly better experience because of less people, more control, more rules.
That's what makes a vacation.
More rules, more rules.
Especially rules that benefit me. I like rules.
That's what I was thinking. That's Royal Caribbean's new slogan. More rules, more fun.
Standard and more rules.
So, I don't know. It's interesting to think about. It's kind of fun to speculate We don't know what we don't know, so we hope that they're working on it and that things are progressing.
That's pretty well put. We don't know what we don't know.
We don't know.
I know. And it seems like every day there's more we don't know.
And just because you knew it today doesn't mean you know it tomorrow.
Exactly.
I'll
Kevin, can you
present-
move your whole face over closer to John? I can only see, oh, there you are. I can only see each of your shoulders on my screen. So I could see this scarf or something sticking out. I didn't know if it was wrapped around your head, if it was over your face. So I just wanted to see where it was. It looks very lovely.
Thank you.
It's much better that it's not on. I was picturing it like being over your head. And
Like Lucy going to Hollywood.
Do it.
I'm a little disappointed, actually. What I was picturing was way funnier.
So, will you cruise with COVID-19 out there? Will you take more precautions? Are you looking forward to a cruise? Are you scared of a cruise? Are you one of these people who say, that's it, I'm done, never again? I want to know. I want to know what your opinion is. All right. Thank you guys for participating in the show and for helping me with this conversation. Thank you, everybody at home, for listening and watching. We hope you have a great week, and we hope you stay safe and stay healthy.